we denounce these illegal tariffs, and we think that they're a direct attack against our workers and now on in the copper industry, and so we'll fight against that.
Ford Motor Company has revealed a projected loss of $2.5 billion directly tied to newly imposed U.S. tariffs, a financial wound it expects to be etched into its 2025 fiscal results. Meanwhile, just a few miles away in Detroit, analysts are sounding alarm bells over at Stellantis, where estimates suggest profits could nosedive by as much as 75% if the tariffs remain in place. But while the tension is already palpable in America's automotive heartland, the real storm is brewing further north. In an unexpected turn, Canada's Foreign Minister Melanie Joly, known more recently for her aggressive trade stance than diplomatic soft talk, has framed Washington's tariff decision as an overt economic assault on Canadian labor. She circled July 21 in red ink as the moment of reckoning. Her warning is unequivocal: retract the tariffs or face a harsh counterpunch, one that includes targeted power supply reductions, retaliatory metal restrictions, and a staggering $29. $8 billion countermeasure package. What was once hailed as the world's smoothest and most integrated supply chain between neighboring allies is now starting to resemble a heavyweight bout. Washington, acting from the West Wing, is hurling economic grenades under the guise of trade protection, while Ottawa quietly expands its commercial reach from London to Jakarta, preparing for life beyond its traditional U.S. partnership. The tension is mounting, and the fuse is lit. If the White House caves before the deadline, automakers in Detroit might sigh in relief. But if not, the next blow will come from Canada's direction, and it's the factory workers and small businesses on both sides of the border who'll feel the sting first. The U.S. invokes Section 232 of the 1962 Trade Expansion Act, a Cold War-era provision originally designed for national defense-related items like missile parts, to justify this latest wave of duties. But this time, the scope was stretched to include key imports like Canadian steel, aluminum, copper, and even passenger vehicles. The supposed justification? National security. But the reality presents a contradiction. Canada isn't just a neighbor, it's a critical supplier. It provides nearly half the metal that keeps Detroit's auto assembly plants operational. And this move doesn't appear to be an isolated decision. Earlier in July, the White House dispatched similar letters to 20 global capitals, warning them to agree to new bilateral trade deals or else face blanket tariffs ranging from 25% to 50%, with implementation scheduled for U.S. Liberation Day. The message was clear: comply or suffer economically. Investors heard it loud and clear. Global markets reacted swiftly. Foreign investors began dumping U.S. Treasury bonds, causing yields to spike and triggering a mass exodus of billions in capital from New York to more stable markets. Diplomats took note too, raising concerns that if a longtime friend like Canada can be labeled a security threat, then no nation is truly safe from America's shifting trade policies. That's why when the Oval Office invokes national security, allied countries increasingly hear it as an economic weapon. And with July 21 clearly marked on Ottawa's calendar, the real question isn't whether Canada will retreat. The question is whether the US is now using its most trusted shield as a weapon that could eventually backfire. The latest blow came in the form of a July 11 letter from Washington that leveled a sweeping 35% tariff on all Canadian exports. Ottawa was jolted. Within 48 hours, Foreign Industry Minister Melanie Joly convened emergency sessions with Canada's most powerful mining executives. First with Glencore and Teck Resources, then with global titan Rio Tinto on July 8. There, she unveiled a bifurcated response plan. Plan A? A diplomatic off-ramp: Washington withdraws the tariffs, and both nations return to the negotiating table. But Plan B was already on paper. Under it, Canada will immediately retaliate by matching the U.S. steel tariff with its own 25% duty. But more than that, it will pull heavier levers. That includes halting exports of critical Canadian assets like hydroelectric power, primary aluminum, and softwood lumber. Each target was chosen strategically to inflict economic discomfort. Consider the stakes: hydropower from Ontario energizes factories in Buffalo and Syracuse. Quebec's aluminum operations supply a third of the pickup trucks built in Michigan. Softwood lumber from Canada's West Coast frames roughly half of the new homes built in the U.S. Pacific Northwest. Ontario, a key energy exporter, is holding the first pressure point. Premier Doug Ford confirmed on July 12 that his province is fully prepared to impose a 25% surcharge amounting to nearly $7 Canadian per megawatt hour on all electricity exported to New York, Michigan, and Minnesota, effective as soon as the U.S. crosses midnight on July 22. Energy traders warned that this move could cost U.S. buyers between $200,000 and $300,000 every day, undercutting already slim seasonal profit margins at dozens of manufacturing facilities in the American Rust Belt. The fallout isn't just industrial, it's already affecting consumer behavior. According to data released on July 10, cross-border passenger travel from Canada into the United States has plummeted by 76% compared to the same time last year. Travel agencies are now steering Canadian tourists away from traditional U.S. beach destinations and toward alternatives in Spain and Croatia. In response, airlines have cut more than 320,000 trans-border seats scheduled for August alone. Duty-free shops from Niagara Falls to the Montana border are reporting sales drops nearing 50%, evidence of a sharp contraction in tourism and consumer sentiment. Though Jolie's office continues to describe Canada's posture as a solution-focused one, the messaging is anything but soft. Every move, every scheduled meeting, every economic calculation appears geared toward strategic retaliation. And with the deadline approaching fast, it's no longer just about tariffs or trade policy, it's about who flinches first in a test of economic endurance between two of the world's closest allies. Canada held its ground through tariffs on aluminum, then steel, and even copper, but now, with just 10 days left, time matters more than rhetoric. If Washington backs down, the tariffs vanish. If not, a domino effect ignites, beginning at Ontario's hydro dams, rippling through Quebec's smelters, and ending with families trading Disney trips for tickets to the Urals. This summer, patience is measured in megawatts and airline miles, and Ottawa has made its stance crystal clear: the next move belongs to the White House. Meanwhile, the electric meter keeps running. Just 2 weeks ago, a piston forged in Quebec could seamlessly cross the Ambassador Bridge, be milled in Detroit, treated in Windsor, machined in Dearborn, and land back in Ontario, all before being assembled into an F-150. Industry insiders say some auto components still bounce across the border 6 or more times before final assembly. But that seamless choreography broke on July 11, 2025, when the White House announced a sweeping 35% tariff on all Canadian imports starting August 1. The shock hit hard. That very morning, GM halted its pickup line in Silao, Mexico, and warned that Windsor's CAM shaft row might shut down for at least 3 weeks due to no viable way around the new tariff web. Stellantis was first to flinch, pausing production at Brampton in April and laying off 900 U.S. workers after a prior 25% tariff. Managers now say the latest tariff surge turns a slowdown into a full-blown stall. Copper prices skyrocketed to a record $5.68 per pound after Washington hinted at an additional 50% tariff on this key EV material. Suppliers quickly tacked on surcharges to every wiring harness and radiator shipped in July. Canada's countermeasures hit just as hard. On July 12, Ontario reaffirmed it would impose a 25% hydro export fee beginning July 22 if Washington holds firm, spiking power costs for more than 170 manufacturing plants across upstate New York. Mines in Sudbury are also diverting aluminum billet shipments to Rotterdam, starving U.S. smelters already reeling from a Midwest premium that's tripled since 2021, now sitting at 60 cents per pound. The economic impact is brutal. The Alliance for Automotive Innovation Project's vehicle prices could jump up to 25%, a $7,000 hike on a midsize SUV once summer stock runs dry. Dealers in states like Ohio and Texas say customers are rushing to buy early, fearing steeper prices. Banks are reporting a surge in 7-year car loans as families brace for rising payments. The border is already feeling the pressure. Truck crossings at the Ambassador Bridge have dropped 18% in just 10 days, per Canada Border Services data, and Amtrak/Toronto, Chicago rail service after southbound demand cratered. Automakers have long relied on razor-thin margins and just-in-time logistics, but tariffs have turned the delicate system into a punishing gauntlet. Every trip across the border now racks up not minutes, but thousands of dollars in taxes and metal markups. With July 21st looming, each passing hour traps more parts on the wrong side of a tariff wall, while customers are left reeling from sticker prices that read like mortgages. But the story of the stranded piston only tells half the tale. Walk into a hardware store this week and the other half hits your wallet. On June 9th, the Midwest aluminum premium surged past 61.5 cents a pound, up 161% since January. Sheet metal buyers locked in early, but the price shock keeps echoing. By July 14th, hot-rolled coil in Chicago was still hovering at $881 per ton, about 33% higher than last fall. Those rising costs seep into every product that moves, cools, or contains car body panels, fridges, even barbecue lids. Sticker shock is no longer hypothetical. On July 12th, Coca-Cola bottlers told investors they were shifting summer promotions to plastic bottles after skyrocketing can prices shredded their budgets. A Reuters survey published June 24th revealed that small food brands are already experimenting with foil pouches in cartons to sidestep rising metal costs. But builders don't have that flexibility. The National Association of Home Builders warned in May and again on July 8th that tariffs on steel, copper, and lumber could add around $10,900 to the cost of a new single-family home. That's enough to push 1 in 12 first-time homebuyers in Ohio out of the market, according to local mortgage brokers. Everyday consumers aren't spared either. S/P Global's PMI on July 11th showed the steepest surge in retail price inflation since winter, with furniture and recreational goods seeing the highest spikes. The San Francisco Fed quantified the pressure, estimating that if August's tariffs kick in at full scale, the average household's real income could fall by 0.4%, or around $320 by year-end. And the pain might not stop there. Ottawa is preparing its counterstrike. Ontario's looming 25% export fee on hydroelectric power, set for July 22 if trade talks fail, will raise electricity costs for U.S. factories near the Great Lakes, eventually hitting grocery aisles and car parts suppliers. Tariffs were pitched as economic armor, but the actual bill is being paid at supermarket checkouts and real estate closings, far from any customs office. Each added cent on aluminum or every dollar more on steel ultimately lands in the consumer's basket. The question isn't if shoppers will notice, but how long they'll keep spending before the economy slows. What's truly in short supply now is trust. Since Trump's tariff barrage began, Canada has reduced its U.S. export dependency from 78% to 68%, while exports to Europe, Australia, and Japan have jumped 42% in value. Ottawa is calling it proof that Canada no longer needs the U.S. checkbook, and exporters are increasingly drafting contracts in euros or yuan to avoid future tariff shocks. This shift signals something deeper. IMF data from July 9 shows the U.S. dollar's share of global reserves has dipped to 57.8%, its lowest in 30 years, while the euro has inched up to 20.1%. It's a small crack, but one that deepens every time a new tariff tweet hits. Investors are already reacting. 4 months of rolling tariff threats have wiped out roughly $4 trillion in U.S. market value, redirecting funds toward gold and European bonds. The San Francisco Fed again warns that the new duties could shave 0.4% from household income over the next year, a financial hit that arrives long before any domestic jobs return. The dollar may still dominate, but its foundation is starting to erode. Every new tariff shifts more Canadian aluminum toward Europe and forces another banker to price goods in euros instead of dollars. Confidence, once the cheapest cost in global trade, has now become the most fragile. Imagine if every trip to the grocery store felt like a tax hike. In just 6 weeks, Washington's 35% tariff has fractured the U.S. Canada supply chain, halted auto production, and driven aluminum prices up 162% since January. On July 14th, TSX futures dipped 0.1% as investors weighed the latest tariff threats and stalled diplomacy. With less than a week until the July 21st deadline, the big question remains: will the White House back off to restore trade peace, or will Canada cement new partnerships in euros and yuan? Let us know where you stand.